Good morning from Easier Habits Live. I'm Alec. Meg is not here. For those of you just joining us, we are on an 8-month journey to get Meg a repeatable customer acquisition process, focusing right now on creating a 5-day challenge. But since Meg's not feeling well, I thought I might take some time just to talk about some of the things that I've been mulling over, thinking about from my experience as a coach and my own experiences as an entrepreneur. What are some of the biggest difficulties in entrepreneurship? And particularly what I'm thinking of is the difficulty of uncertainty. Now, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, small business owners take on a lot of uncertainty, and it's one of the things that I feel like weighs heaviest on the entrepreneurs. For me, at least personally, hard work is nowhere near as stressful or as wearing as high amounts of uncertainty. And a lot of what dissuades us from, hard work really diving in is uncertainty. So, for example, I've been doing lots of talks about getting, big contracts or, finding ways to do full-time consulting for someone else so I don't have to focus on marketing, and I can help Meg with marketing. And starting her business. So because there's so much writing on these contracts, they're more high stakes, and that in and of itself is not more stressful, but the stressful piece of this really is when you get to an all or nothing point. You're wondering all right, is this the last talk that I'm going to have with this person about a contract, etc.? And so when I have a lot of those piling up, right, regardless of how much work I'm doing, regardless of whether they're, regardless of whether I think the outcome is probable or not, if it's still uncertain, right, I feel a high degree of stress that can make it difficult to focus, make it difficult to be productive, etc. And there's a lot of things I do in practice to help me manage that stress, but at the root of it is uncertainty and how I deal with uncertainty. So there's several sources of uncertainty. A couple that I'm going to gloss over really have to do with being uncertain about what you want, and this is something I see in coaching. So one source of uncertainty is just not knowing what you want. Therefore, you're switching between tasks constantly and goals constantly, and never actually pursuing one long enough to get results. And that kind of becomes a negative feedback loop where you never get results, you never get anything done, so you don't feel successful. And if your tendency, right, is to seek freedom when you feel unsuccessful, then you try something new. And then you try something new because you're feeling less successful. It's just kind of like a negative feedback loop where you never stick with something long enough to actually get good at it and produce results, and you're essentially generating your own uncertainty by switching to something new rather than sticking consistently to one thing. And the problem here is really a combination of needing enough introspection to know yourself, but also just practice. I think consistency and being able to focus on a singular project till it's done is in the end a practice. And if you have a hard time doing with it, you'll have to find ways to build up that practice a bit at a time, right? Maybe you're not going to be able to focus on one thing all day, every day, but you can focus on it 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, half an hour, and kind of build up that practice of how long you can spend focusing on a singular goal every day. Kind of similar and related about not being sure about what you want, that uncertainty is actually you want something and you know what you want, but there's a downside of it that you don't want, and so you're constantly conflicted about your desire for the thing that you want versus your desire to avoid the thing you don't want are constantly in tension and creating uncertainty, and you don't know which one is going to win out at any given certain day, any given certain time. And this is, one we talked about with Meg. She wants to run her own business and she knows what she wants to be doing, but part of that she wants to be doing, or part of making this happen, making this very unique approach to teaching English and coaching people, not just like teaching them English grammar, but coaching them in English to meet their business goals, especially Japanese people. Like, that's her goal. It's a great niche. It's a great goal, but part of that is marketing, and she has a strong resistance to marketing. And not only, I think it's the marketing that is a challenge for her, but the uncertainty that it generates, right? That I don't know if I have it in me today to work on the business, or, take a break because I'm so stressed out from this marketing thing. That generates uncertainty, which makes it even harder than sometimes resolving for yourself to accept the whole thing. And I think this is, for me personally, and I think some of the people I've talked to, this is the way I've worked through this would be practicing examining your alternatives in whole. So a lot of times what we do is we compare, when we're thinking about our options, we compare the good part of one to the bad part of another. It's not apples to apples comparison. But when you're examining your options, what are your choices? Examine the whole choice, the good and the bad. So if I start my own business, right, the pros are that I get to do my, coaching my way, which, no one else is doing if I had to apply to a job to teach English or help people to English somewhere else, right? The upside is that, the business can scale. It can make as much money as I want to. I can design how much travel I want to do, all of that. I have control over it. The downside is I have to start from zero with no customers, and I have to figure out how to acquire them, right? And I have to build a customer journey. I have to build a product line. I have to build, I have to wear all of those hats myself. And I, have to do a lot of that high level thinking, a high level planning. I have to confront all this uncertainty. So those things come together. You really don't get to do the one without the other, right? And what are my other options? Well, I can work for somebody else. All of a sudden, I can jump into a job where there's already clients, or where there's someone finding clients for me or finding customers for me, and I don't have to worry about that, right? I might get a consistent salary, so I'm not starting from zero, and I get to focus generally on one skill, but maybe it's not the exact thing I would like to be doing or the way I'd like to be doing it, right? That's the trade-off, and there's a cap on how much I can make. I have to work on somebody else's hours, etc., right? Those are the whole options. And as you're looking at your options, it might be, work for myself, work for somebody else. Might be do this product line or this niche, embracing the whole options, the good and the bad, and making that choice and accepting, like, look, if I'm going to build my own business, for example, and the con is marketing, I'm accepting it. That means at some level, I'm accepting marketing. Like, this is something I'm choosing to pick up, right? There's a phrase, why is it eluding me right now, that if you pick up one end of the stick, you pick up the other as well. And that's kind of this idea of accepting the whole thing. So write out your options, and be honest with yourself which one you're choosing, including the good and the bad. So that's one way to deal with that. And then there's another, there's kind of an attendant. Once you've actually made your choice, you're not choosing so much. It doesn't feel like you're choosing so much between working on the part of your business that you like and avoiding, but maybe what you're doing is not growing, versus choosing to, work on marketing or the parts of your business that you don't like and growing, right? Like, that's the constant choice and uncertainty if you're conflicted about that. And once you've actually made your choice and accepted the whole, it becomes a lot easier to work on what's highest priority in the whole business, whether it's the part you love or not. And there's less uncertainty there. There's less tension there. And then within that, there's a number of things that you can do. there's a number of things that you can do to build, if not passion for the thing you don't like or enjoyment of the thing you don't like, meaning in that, right? You connect it to the thing that is meaningful. You can try and reframe it. So yeah, I hate feeling like I'm selling myself, but I love helping people get a quick win for, in English. And so I'm going to reframe this effort is this 5-day challenge is not about marketing myself. It's about getting someone a quick win. And I will let them know who I am and where they can find more as a part of this, right? Like I will open that, but like my focus is going to be on, helping, in Meg's case, Japanese people create a 1-minute marketing video in English with the English they have that will hopefully open up some doors to their business in the English speaking world, right? Focusing, reframing on that, or, framing on like, yes, I'm working on the business. Yes, this is hard for me and I'm acknowledging that, or I feel some resistance, but this is going to open up this other aspect. It's instrumental. You can link it to something that's meaningful, reframe it so it's meaningful. Those are different ways you can tackle with it, but I find that like probably the biggest difficulty in this is just the uncertainty when you haven't made the choice to accept your whole option, the good and the bad. And you can do this with like, choices of like what you're working on, and you can do this with people and places and all sorts of things, right? All of a sudden it becomes a lot easier to deal with a person when you're not oscillating between, do I like them because of this thing or not like them because of the other thing? Like when you accept the whole person, and so you're not making up your mind about them, and oscillating between 2 points, but like you've accepted the whole picture, then it becomes a lot easier to understand your relationship to them and how you should act. So, reducing uncertainty. One thing is to like make up your mind what you want. Another thing is to make sure that you're accepting the whole of what you want, the good and the bad, right? So you're not oscillating between 2 points. But another way that you can reduce uncertainty, and all of these tips, tricks, whatever, about reducing uncertainty, all of them are things you can do completely on your own. Right? It doesn't matter what the project is. It doesn't matter what you're working with. These are all like mindset things that you can do yourself to reduce uncertainty. And the last one is one I am thinking personally quite a bit about, which is how committed are you to your goal? And it's really easy to lie about this, right? It's a spectrum, but you can kind of think of it as like, okay, there's basically people who say they have a goal, but they're basically just killing time and hoping that something happens, versus people who are committed to making that goal happen, right? Those are 2 levels of commitment. And I think quite often people oscillate in their, in their level of commitment that generates uncertainty. One day they're more committed, one day they're less committed. They don't know how committed they're going to be when they wake up this day. They let that, their level of commitment rest on how easy it is or how they feel, rather than, all right, this is my goal. What am I doing today to make this happen? And to say, if you're sick, for example, that you can't take a day off. But what I've noticed, for example, when I'm sick and I am not certain in my level of commitment, is I have this added layer of weight, of stress. Am I doing enough? Am I slacking off just because I'm lazy? Versus when I know precisely how committed I am. If I'm committed, I think I can still take where I am. I'm sick. I'm going to need to rest extra. But maybe I'm going to do this one more thing to show how committed I am. Or not to even just show how committed I am, because I want this thing to be done. I'm just going to do a little bit, like this is what I can do. Maybe I have an hour of work in me today. Maybe that's an hour of work in land because I am committed, even if it's only a little bit, rather than spending the whole day stressing about whether I am committed or not. And that's actually more work, more stressful, less restful than doing, the 1 hour of work that I can do here or there or something. So that's kind of an example of the way that uncertainty and commitment can weigh on you. And even when you're not sick, right, this weighs on you. If every time you take a break for lunch, right, you're renegotiating, am I committed or am I not? When am I going to end the lunch, right? Every day you're taking on an additional intellectual burden that's weighing you down, that's sapping your productivity, versus just knowing that you're committed and, planning your day so that you can make something happen. So, and I think because it's really easy to be dishonest with ourselves about how I am, or it's really easy to be dishonest with myself about how I am either, committed or not committed. I'm starting to work on an inventory. I don't have it, finalized quite yet, or a checklist. I'd love your feedback on any of this if this is helpful, but particularly on the checklist, I'll share a few items that I've been thinking about. But you can imagine two lists, right? One of being committed and one of just hoping that something happens and killing time. And, for each item, you check one box or the other and kind of see where the weight of your checkbox is in. Are you more in the committed to making it happen, or are you more in the hoping it happens and killing time category? So a couple examples of what you might do is, in the committed category, do I find that discomfort is a sign that I'm stretching enough, that I'm, stretching and learning, or am I committed to minimizing my discomfort and not feeling discomfort, right? That's the hope category. Another one is, am I asking myself, in the committed category, am I asking myself, what more can I do? Or in the hope category, am I asking myself whether I have done enough to sign off for the day, right? That I can tune out. Another category of this, let's see, like another index would be when I have a setback. Do I use this as a chance to reframe from and kind of improve my plans, right? Take a look at, what I could plan better, or my routine or my schedule or whatever, and fix that? Or in the hope category, do I use it as a chance to take a break? In the committed category, am I thinking about this all the time? Is this something that I voluntarily think of throughout the day, even when I'm not working, because I'm interested in it and committed to it? Or is this something that I turn off as soon as I'm out of work, right? That's the hope category. And kind of similarly, am I talking about it a lot? That's a sign of am I actually thinking about it? Or if you're shy or embarrassed or not willing to talk about it, that's a sign that you're not really fully committed. You're kind of hoping that happens. Another index is with help, right? If you are in the committed category, you would fall under the category, you'd check the box that I'll take as much help as I can get from anywhere, right? You're open to help, versus the hope and killing time. I'll just see what I can do on my own. Again, there's kind of a root of for some people, I'm embarrassed about doing this. I don't want to be open about it. You're shutting yourself from help and opportunities because you're trying to do it all on your own. So, let's see, do a few others is, how do you deal with failure, right? Is failure a learning opportunity, or is failure an uncomfortable thing you try not to think about, right? If you spend your time in failure, or shutting out failure and just moving on to the next thing rather than learning from it, you're more likely to repeat it. You're less committed to fixing your mistakes and actually making the thing happen, and you're more committed to not feeling uncomfortable and moving on and hoping that the mistake solves itself, right? So these are kind of litmus tests. If this is something that's interesting to people, I will leave a comment down below, and I will, create a PDF that you can check the box yourself. But I think you get the gist. And one of the things that you could do is just simply journal. Writing a journal by hand is particularly effective on whether you are committed to making your goal happen and making that a reality. Now, the way I'm using this in my life is I realized a few weeks ago, I'm trying to take a full-time contract. I'm trying to take extra household and family responsibilities to free Meg up to focus on the this client acquisition process. And I have, a few long-term projects of my own that I've realized that I've really been putting off a long time and I'd like to make happen. And that is a lot to do. I'm not doing it all at once, but even so, I realized I would fundamentally have to change the way I use my time, my effectiveness level to be able to, work full time, take a brunt of family responsibilities, and then also make these long-term goals that I've been putting off for 20 years or something, that I'd like to see happen now that I'm kind of hitting the middle of my life, my midlife crisis. I'm turning 40 this year, right? So I'd like to, to make all this happen, I'd like to be more effective. And so I'm taking a commitment, I'm taking an inventory of where am I? And, I am committed to what can I do more, and every week I'm trying to do something better. One of the things that's hard for me is the help one, for example. Am I committed to getting help wherever I can? Am I committed to, learning from failures? Are there failures I'm avoiding? Are there things I'm avoiding doing because I'm afraid of failure? That's another one. Or am I glossing over failures rather than engaging with them because I have some perfectionist tendencies, right? And so what I'm doing with this personal inventory that I'm creating for myself is not that I'm castigating myself for areas where I fall into the hope versus the commitment, but maybe identifying some of those areas and working on them in small ways a little bit each week at a time so that I can raise my commitment level. I think a lot of times we may have a view in our minds about, the perfect entrepreneur is this person who's just naturally committed all the time, and you either are or you aren't. And I don't really actually believe that's true. I just believe that there's very few people who are willing to take the consistent small steps to build up that level of commitment. And if you were to see a lot of these committed people, you'd realize their path to commitment was full of a lot of times that they, blew something off because they were exhausted and uncertain or not committed. And, they slept in a little bit. And, what you get at the end of the day, at the end of a long journey of entrepreneurship, when they say you have to be committed and most people aren't working hard enough and I work 12 hours a day. One, I bet that's not every day. You're getting the idealized version of their current self, but you're also getting the current self that is years and years and years into their journey where they have formally or informally been practicing their level of commitment. Don't beat yourself up if you're not at that level of commitment, but take a personal inventory of where you're at. Where are you hoping that something works out versus committed to ensuring that it does? And, maybe make a little tweak here or there. So on the help front, right? Maybe I reach out to a new person every week and just make an ask. So I get comfortable asking for help. So I'm not shutting myself off from outside resources, but I'm allowing other people to give me insight, connections, feedback, etc. And so that I'm opening up myself to more avenues of making this happen, right? Just pick, it doesn't have to be a big sea change in commitment. And that's, again, I guess what a lot of people think. They have to be all right, from this day, I'm going to be super committed, 100% committed. Commitment is a spectrum. And like anything, you can build it up one piece at a time. So I hope this has been helpful. I think, there are plenty of skill gaps And I'm sure people tend to be interested in like the specific marketing videos, like when we talk about VSL or the 5-day challenge and how we're using that, etc. And those things are great, but underlying a lot of reason for why we're not productive or effective is often a glaring error in our mindset. We haven't made up what we're really focused on. We're oscillating between two goals, and that's sapping our strength. We're oscillating between wanting the goal but avoiding a part of the goal that we don't like, right? We haven't made our mind up to accept the whole of the situation. We're still trying to cherry pick and only work on the parts we like. That generates uncertainty. And the last thing is, we're telling ourselves we're committed, but we're really just hoping and killing time. And that generates uncertainty and kind of saps our energy. So I hope that you can take these pieces, maybe identify one that's affecting you in your business, and again, take something small, week to week action, and just decrease that uncertainty in your life. So until next time, make big changes, one small habit at a time.